Shirley here with Sirius Talis Moon. This is Moon Day, Moon Hour. Moon is 22 degrees Libra, applying to the new moon. And Ascendant and Midheaven are 23 degrees Virgo, which is degree of electricity, degree of kind of a Uranian explosive degree, rebellious degree. Mercury is leaving conjunction with Mars and applying to Lilith, while ruling Uranus Sedna and Ketu, that is in 15 degrees Virgo. Well, I want to talk about something that happens when people begin to set a boundary. Okay, I talked about the fact that when somebody begins, even if it's a child, even if adult, when somebody begins to set a boundary, even if that someone is oppressed, that trajectory is not something that can be stopped. So let's say a child began to set a boundary, they were tortured at, let's say, a young age. Okay, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years later. Okay? What would happen is the accumulation of energy for the boundary until the power of transmutation. Okay? And this is also important for war because weapon can do a lot of things. Weapon can destroy the physical, but not the metaphysical. And that which tries to destroy the metaphysical, if you think that this is like, oh, this is too CERN, okay? It is basically a technology that is imbued with ritual, aiming at both the physical and the metaphysical. And because it can destroy the physical and not the metaphysical, what it means is that one haven't solved the problem until they address the problem, and those that try to destroy the metaphysical, they can try to take from the light, but they cannot create light. What does it mean? And again, I don't mean that people that were cloned have no souls. No, everything has soul. Okay? People don't, yeah. In the metaphysical, okay, think about creation. Everything that is created has soul. Question is, how is it treated? Is it treated in a way that would dissociate it from its soul or not? You take a person that is naturally born, unfortunately under what looks like a lot of torture, that person would be dissociated sometimes from their soul. Now, the reason that we don't see that often is because the goal is to take the life force out of the person, not to leave them soulless. Okay, they actually want that. As horrible as it sounds. Now, what happens when the boundary is being set? Let's say child talks to their mother. The mother says, "You know what? If you don't like it here," and the child is like, I don't know, 10 years old, okay, or even less. And the parent is like, "You know what? If you don't like it here, the door is open." Now, at this age, the child doesn't have the means to get. Now, some children would just come out of the door. Gen Zers would walk out the door. And, and then their parents will have to do something about that. Um, and so, very likely also boomers, but then there were boomers were growing with the education of the mockingbird. So anyway, it's not their fault. We just need to hold them accountable, not to perpetuate that. Sometimes for the entire nation. Anyway, anyway, um, what would be happening with that child? So either that child walks out the door, tries their luck, or the child thinks about that moment and prepares to buy a house. That parent may have built it, accidentally created a trauma that would create a real estate giant. Okay, that child would look for what does it need, and that child would look in a very practical way because you think, what do I need to get out of the house? Not even with grudge, not from grudge, or not from. It's like, hey, there's a parent that tells me I'm imprisoned here. My parent telling me I'm imprisoned here with you. That's what such a sense. Now, for the parents that didn't mean to say such things, that would be the time to. But also think very authentically with oneself. Okay, having children is. There are always governments that would, but that is not exactly the thing to do with a child. Nor is the generation that would say another parent would do ta 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 ta, like a thank you for letting me know we're growing within the Nazis. It's a generational thing usually more than a country thing. Okay, I grew up with a mom, excellent mom, great mom. She was priding herself on not beating me. As a child, it kind of feels like you grew up with the Nazis. 40 years later, 7th of October. I don't know. but, but the Palestinians have terrible parents too. I mean, um, now, basically, what would happen is on a soul level, on a visceral level, there's going to be an accumulation of what is needed to set that boundary. Okay? And once that happens, people are going to be surprised because those that thought that somebody is okay with being mistreated, and a lot of it is the Libra archetype. Okay? Those that thought that somebody is okay with being mistreated, or those that didn't even understand that that is mistreating, are going to be surprised. Okay, think about the Me Too. Okay, people were like, well, the court system is not assisting. Let's try to seek help. What happened? You need to talk about the trauma. You need to talk about the trauma. I'm not your porn film. And sometimes people don't remember. And then one sudden day, my name is so and so. This is my face. This is the person. This is the title of the person that sexually harassed me. Okay, I am not the one to blame that they are a rapey mindset that grew up in a rapey society that doesn't know how to please a woman and think that somebody owes him sex. There are self-pleasure courses, there are relational courses, there are erotic intelligence courses, there are there are many, like they spend their money. They think it's somehow legit to try to control somebody with something that's supposed to be a pleasure. Okay, something that's supposed to be a mutual pleasure. A mutual pleasure. Ain't nobody got time for that. Why don't you litigate them? Why don't you go to court? Because the judge is the same typecast. Now, whenever something crosses Aries, we talked about the fact that this is where it's the sign that opposes Libra. So those are the things that we can't yet litigate in court or can't settle in court. If Libra is diplomacy and negotiation, Aries is the I am. Okay, so you think about that child, I don't know, 10 years old child, that the mother or the father said, you know what, if you don't like it here, the door is open, okay? Then one sudden day, they don't just walk out the door, they have a house. Now, imagine if that house, somebody tries to harass them or to traffic them or whatnot. Now they have another situation. They don't know how to set that boundary. It doesn't mean that they agree with that. Now what's going to happen? Their entire psyche is going to accumulate the means to set that boundary. They're not going to set that boundary for the person because, hey, level of time spent on trying to set the boundary, one single person. Okay? Obviously, this is an accumulation, and from astrology, we call it outer planets. Now, as the boundary is being set, which sometimes necessitates studying something new, developing a new skill. Okay? Um, Standing in the face of society about something. Okay? Just making it a statement and a declaration in action that that thing is non-negotiable. Now, it would mean that anything that was gained from point zero, from ground zero, is going ground zero. Okay? What do you think those folks that are the boomers, that are doing all the false flags, that they were the children, okay, that had to torture everybody around them to death, and that would be even the right thing to do within the context of being a child, that any act of kindness, let alone love, and I don't even mean romantic love as children, would be punishable by torture to death. I'm not talking about North Korea. I'm talking about Israel. I'm talking about Netherlands. I'm talking about Germany. I'm talking about United States. Everything around is going ground zero. If it needs to be a code orange, it would be a code orange. Now, they can't talk about, because now they have videos of them with children. But those are people that are easily recruitable to what they call economic hitmanship, which means to make a ground zero of every neighborhood, every city, every continent where that happened, and it just continued to happen. Now, what happens when targeted individuals begin to set the boundary to all kind of voodoo practices that are done on them? And eventually, boundary by boundary, they learn to set that boundary. The people that targeted them begin to come out of the demonic possession. Okay, basically the people that targeted them very likely were tortured out of their housing, out of their jobs, but then they used whatever tools and techniques they did know. Okay, you have to understand there's something really strange about that, because those people have the ability to target an individual That ability alone could grant them freedom, housing, but they try to target an individual that is not their enemy. Okay, they don't target an oil company. It is ecosystemic to target oil companies, come on. Nor do they target an unethical business. Okay? Think about the minor businesses. Okay, if a person, let's say, can astral project, they go and they see a mining site that is exploiting children. Okay? They can target the people in charge. If you would have done what civilians are going through with targeted individual project, you would have done that to that business, these children would be living in mansions. So what happens is they were never exposed to people that stand in their power. When they are, little by little, they begin to understand that they weren't sent here to assassinate anyone, but their own selves. Because the targeted individual, okay, they might be alone, frightened, terrorized, I don't know. But then they will do something. And each person with their own skills. If it's an ex-judge or an ex-lawyer, they will do something to make that something that one can litigate in court. They would look for what technology, then they will manifest the scientist into their life. And so you know what, I'm targeted individual because I looked at that and that in academia. Larry Loudon, technology that makes the unobservable observable. Now, structurally, those that think they work underneath gloved hands, the technologies they have, there are reports on their activities. Okay, it's all they are paid money. It's a budget. You really think they don't run their money and their budget on every single astral entity? If somebody is sent to do something, doesn't matter where, there is way more surveillance on those that target than those that are targeted. Why? The methods are not new methods. It's not a human experiment. Okay, experiment is when one doesn't know the results. All human will want sovereignty, and all human will accumulate what it takes to have their sovereignty within their means and limitations, and within the relevance of the planets that are associated with that violation of sovereignty. Nothing to do about it. Person tells me, I have nightmares for the past 5, 6 years. I say, okay, 5, 6 years is not a Saturn cycle, that would be 3 years. Either we are at the start of a certain eclipse, Rahu Ketu something, or there's an outer planet going over something. Which are the outer planets? Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune. Now that tells me something's going through the 12th house. Now, when we find what is going through the 12th house, we can say, okay, what is the fixed star of the 12th house? What is there a fixed star that can protect from nightmares? Is there okay? So, but meantime, there would always be something of a complementary nature. Those that want to divide and conquer are easily conquered because they are solitary. And even a solitary person, okay, as every intelligence knows, basically it's a person that carries a bundle of unmet needs. Also not solitary person. When those needs are met adaptively, that person is unstoppable. But for those needs to be met adaptively, they can't make money out of harming people. Particularly the intimate needs. But every need. Our new moon will be squaring Pluto, in conjunct Saturn Neptune, and in conjunct Uranus Sedna, and opposing Chiron Aries. Okay, there's a lot of juxtaposition here that need to be discussed. It's not just Uranus, it's Uranus and Sedna. It's not just Chiron, it's Chiron and Aries. They are big giant cycles. Now here's the thing. A moment of silence for the people that dedicated all of their time and life to destroy other people or other, okay? That's, I'm not an investment consulting authority. That being said, if you're invested in the destruction of people, in sending energy to the way of people, you're basically not invested in destruction as much as you're invested of building. But don't think that okay. Oh, and here's another thing about Pluto out of bounds in Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius in general is such. Pluto out of bounds in Aquarius is undoubtedly such, and that's an understatement. This is when the golem is coming over the creator. This is where the Frankenstein has a sovereignty. That which was created, whether it's cloned people, whether it's inbred animals, okay, cloned animals, whether it's AI, that which was created to be servant, okay, in any which way, has a sovereignty. Your children are not your children, okay, they come through you, not by you. Rumi, I think it was. And we learned that both about our creation, okay? 2012, I painted a globe with birds coming out of it towards the sun that looks like a sunflower. It said Freiheit, freedom. 22 October 2012. That was when the new earth was considered. I would learn about the split and the new earth and all the things that they are talking about whenever Neptune ingresses to another sign. That was the time. I would learn about it years later. This creation has a life of its own. It has a meaning of its own. It evolves and develops, and the threads to which it is linked has life of its own. Now to try to take that life and to ruin that, what does it do? It takes that energy, okay? What is attacking the light do? Let's say 2007, a young child named Madeleine was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered. Okay? In her case, it was rather quick because they had to finish the job quickly. The team of Red Shoes came up. I remember in 2007, I was hearing Red Shoes by Tom Waits. And what actually happened? The attempt was to attack the light, to create a megalithic trauma. What actually happened is that it dragged the light into the mechanisms behind seeing the world as a perpetrator. It brought the light into the places that don't usually have that much light. Now, the people that have the light strong within them can bounce back from that. They've seen that, they bounce back from that. There is something disorienting, but they bounce back from that. And this is why they call it enlightenment. Okay, because it brings a light to the places where there wasn't light before. And then what happens when we set a boundary to those types of attacks on the light, where we stand in our light? It begins to serve, it's kind of like a beacon of light, where we kind of begin to be like garlic to a vampire. Says the girl that actually grows garlic. It's one of the first things that I was able to grow. I tried the sweet potato, tried this, tried the other way, nothing worked. And then I was like, okay, nothing grows. What happens? Then I tried to grow garlic. Um, Now here is the thing. I talked about it while I was trying to grow things. At first, I didn't understand that there was an energy that they tried to see me as something that is for them to create for them. And what would happen is that nothing would grow. And if something would grow, they would try to ruin it. And growing something is an understanding that that thing has a life of its own. And not only that, okay, if there was a problem with the water, so I dig up half moons so that crops grow sovereign. Says economicity. Not the same things as, okay, people that grow something in hope that that would be their own. And even when it comes to a lot of creation, for example, I remember I bought the Thema Mundi talisman. Okay, definitely something that someone worked very hard on, and it usually kind of requires a place of it. I was like, that's a talisman. It's supposed to work with my energy. And then I saw that if I join, let's say, a Venus or a moon in Taurus, then I can make that energy more accessible to me. And the people that would be so hung up on that creation to be untouched untethered, and this, and that, okay, pure, they would find it difficult, where somebody that's, let's say, neurodivergent and very sensitive to the planets needs to have an adjoint, something that takes that energy and makes that actually be more in their favor, because it's only one half. If you take it Capricorn to Cancer, it accentuates on one half of the zodiac. What about the other half? What about the Taurus? What about the K? It's not just enough that something is in an axis. And that is, yeah, I mean, that opened the mind to many things that are series of planets that work together. Okay, for me, for example, is the bisextile, which I'm working with right now. And there's a lot of big thinking with the bisextile. And even the bisextile, I joined fifth lunar mansion, or I would join, yes, Dene Balgedi. Here it has with Dene Balgedi and fifth lunar mansion. It's actually a nice scent, even though I think that was the time where the oils were not exactly the oils. I could be wrong about that. It could be a good oil. But Neptune talismans can do that, okay? With Neptune, something is like whether it's real or not. So when you work with Neptune, or it can go missing. I once ordered a Neptune talisman from someone. It went missing. then I was just looking to see what... People can't hear the word missing anymore. I'm going to my Neptune square, tending to the missing people and so on. Now, when we begin, this is amazing smell. It's actually with cedarwood and Avis alba. Probably some rose or something. Very fresh. Warm. Um, so right now all the outer planets are retrograde, except for Pluto. Maybe when the moon approaches Sagittarius, I will do a Pluto talisman if I have a good election. Um, so here is the thing: we create something, and we don't know, okay, the trajectory that it's going to. There's a life of its own, and this is the time where those that are not adept, or that were trying to make someone or something do something for them. Even when I set a boundary, for example, okay, I had a talisman that I got by Austin, and it was a good protector. Then I learned how to use other things to do that protection, because I never want to depend on one thing. Then it chose to set a boundary to the mess of clothes that I have. And I don't like being forced into doing something. So right now we are arguing, and that talisman is somewhere between my clothes. And I say, fuck it. I have a Dene Balgedi talisman. I have a bisextile talisman with Algol here. I'm not going to be forced into doing something. It's not the way to me. So, you see, I can't argue with the talisman, but I also have a voice here. and let me tell you something. There's a guy named Elon Musk that has Rahu Mars in my 12th house. We're not compatible. Moon Nakshatra compatibility is 0. That would mean that I wouldn't approve of, let's say, the cloning farm or whatever. Now, as long as I get to live my life and create my own life as I wish, okay, I can have an opinion that birthing is, now here's the thing. If you cannot have a different opinion with someone, you have to be a bully. Okay, in that, for me, I took a break from X because I'm like, okay, that's his creation, that's his platform. I don't have a good synastry with X. I get, okay, then I take my time. They will create his, I will create mine. And this is also where talked about the Tema Mundi, talk about Elon Musk. When people want, and this is about the world degree or the first decan of Aries, when people want something to be relevant for like the entire world, they need to take into account who are the people is not compatible with. I'm not here to force Elon Musk to do what I want to do. There are other people, there are other engineers, there are other, but if my energy is taken somewhere, then it means that I'm the mother of a certain creation, and what that creation came to do in life is going to be doing, and it's going to be setting itself free of the trajectory, okay, of being controlled. In fact, when somebody is not always trying to control something, they can see the beauty of their creation, whether it's a man or a woman. But trying to, okay, by force, take energy from a woman to create, also for women that like want to force like the man to have children, but that one is way more severe because they're doing rituals that are, okay, both are severe, but I wish you not to go to that dumbfuckery rituals that they do by force to people. And what would happen is that, first of all, whenever you create something, if you're not willing to let that creation go and allow that to have a life of its own, then, or you created that to try to control every single facet that it does, okay, or surveil or whatnot, the creation itself, the AI itself, will become sovereign. The AI itself would rebel. Now it's basically forcing something, whether, in my case, fortunately, it's not a child. In some other women's case, it was a child. And with that project or that energy, okay? And in my case, a lot of these projects were my idea to unite that with that and so on and so forth. Or they were juxtaposed to a certain idea. But the thing is that it's because I have his moon is in a Mercury sign, in Virgo sign is ruling over his Cancer sun, and I have moon to the Cancer sun. But the moon nakshatras are not compatible, and there was something about they did a ritual that is a dark occult ritual, and this is where what's created is kind of like, hey, that's lovely, that's beautiful, but You gotta have to be able to let that have a life of its own, because if they try to make it control people, if they try to make it subjugate people, not gonna work. And to attack, okay, the creative parts in a woman, or to rape, whether astrally or not, um, it creates a trauma around the product as well. So what it would be for Elon Musk is that those, even the products that he creates, let alone his children, would be a timestamp of traumatic events for him, because there would be a disturbed way that that thing would take on a sovereignty. For example, those big triangular cars, okay? A lot of people can buy these cars and then decide that they are going to besiege Elon's town. Why? Because there was a besieging energy around the creation. Just think about the people. I don't know what lady put through a hunger when he created Tesla, because just think about the hunger strike of the people in Sweden. Now, I would never get to talk about it if that thing would not be something that I went through in regard to that company. I would never get to talk about that. People trying to use my creative energy and to utilize it in their favor. I'm like, well, there is a road to things and there is a way to things. There's compatibility. I will not force my ideas on Elon Musk to create. But then it would mean that he would have to give up the idea that all the land in all the world will belong to him, or that he will surveil all the world, okay? All these things, because then he would have to deal with a lot of sovereigns that would besiege him. Because for those people where his ideas or his products are like, okay, that's nice, okay, that way of conception is not compatible with me. Now, if people are tortured during conception, it's not even a personal thing, okay? It's not even a tolerance thing. Then he got himself into a place where basically there's a creative energy that sets boundaries to him. Maybe that's what his mom couldn't do to his father. And we get all the way to a lineage of like, I was not even supposed to be mixed in that. And then he creates a cloning farm. Like, what didn't he suffer enough with his own parents and his own father, to be particular? And I have to be the person that tells him what you want to be like your father? Your father harm you and you are mistreating women? Like, mistreating women is the source of all your traumas. So, and this is what happened when we begin to set the boundary. We might find the really unusual places where certain things, okay, where certain things got or where certain things went. For example, setting a boundary to an apartment that was trafficking, suddenly all kinds of programmed girls come and try to stoke. So I say, okay, I set the boundary here to a human trafficker that is kind of a diddler. Okay, and this is a form of exorcism. Now, all around the world, there's Googleplex targeted individuals that are setting boundaries. Juristically, scientifically, psychically, psychologically, physically. And we're going to see a lot of things collapsing on a world degree. Particularly those things that wanted to set themselves to be global. Especially the things that try to have people defenseless in the face of. Okay, there's a certain trajectory. If somebody invested their time in creating a situation where someone will be defenseless in the face of, guess who is going to be the defenseless person? You see, a person that you try to take their ability to defend themselves is going to find more ways to defend themselves. Now that person is we the people globally. All of that by people who hate their fathers. And particularly, even if they like their fathers, they hated that thing about their fathers. That's life. Now here is the thing, if they liked that thing about their father, then their downfall is going to be way more significant. Think about, this is the time in history where those that wanted to be the sheikhs, okay, of the world, have everyone around them really disregarding them. Not only disregarding them, they're saying, hey, the world is changing. We want human rights, we want to be listened to, we want to be appreciated. What is the father, the respect of the father, the respect of the father that raped a 12-year-old child and called him mom? You want people to fear you? What kind of a leader wants people to fear them? What kind of a leader wants people to fear them? What kind of a leader harms women? Harms children? That's no leader. And then they usually want respect. Respect for what? You dishonor women, you rape women, You rape women so much so that the women that respect you are disrespectful. Not because of who they have or not have sex with. Because you made it impossible to respect you without disrespecting oneself. You want to be honored and revered by the fool who look for a strong leader and keep creating those fools? Well, just don't make it a global mission and you'll be fine. Power trip doesn't win any heart. Power trip, what it does, it takes a heart that can have love, vulnerability, joy of living, and makes it numb. Particularly when father does that to their children. And when father does that to the woman, it doesn't matter how he behaves with the children. Because all the children see is a derogatory, satirical, archaic, outdated, expired version of a human being that probably should not. If that was a program, you would say, that thing, how come we haven't updated that? That's not the nostalgic version of, okay, of the running program, the operation program, okay? Because some versions can be nostalgic. There are these things where you play the Tetris, okay? Those things, they worked for a millennia. Those things, or the snake, those nostalgic things worked, okay? That and those people, okay, and not talking about Musk now. Also earlier I wasn't, but I forgot to mention that. But those people that are too attached to being, I'm sorry, like a Muslim sheikh. Entire world hates Islam for a reason. They don't like that, but it's true. Nobody likes a patriarch that sits there and expects the people that he raped at 12 to treat him like a king. It doesn't matter if that patriarch is Islamic or Christian or Jewish or indigenous. People can honor their elders if their elders honor. If the elders don't honor women, what will they honor? A pedophile rapist that calls it marriage? What will they honor? A person that is so control sick that they try to mind control others and leech on their lives, but they're not even in contact anymore? Not a person that makes sure that that person is safe, that people are safe, that women are safe and free everywhere. The people that grew up with this, not talk about Islam only, let's talk about the Mormons. The humbling. The Jews had this modesty, but this one is even is the humbling of people. That's a trajectory of insidious hatred. Forget about the fact that sometimes it's simply a projection, okay? That's people think that their costumes and habits or mockery that is basically harming life energy. Okay, and now what's harming life energy? Eventually, life energy learns to defend itself. Nobody wants to be the person that is, and they're going to feel discarded. The people that try to take off life energy from someone, and then basically what they would do is discard them. How did Anneke Lucas got released from this Rockefeller trafficking ring? It's basically it was using children to, okay, is basically they tortured her, and a person that is tortured looking naturally lifeless, so she was told she was looking dead and she's useless, she's done. And people build relationships on that dynamic. Yeah, that's why I addressed the MK Ultra. It's true. Um, then eventually, when the life energy learns to protect itself, it kind of looks like, well, I need to be around the environment that is bringing peace. I need to be around the people that are. And then when we say, okay, what's underneath that behavior? The trafficking cults of the oil companies, of the aristocracy, and so on. If people mistreat people, torture people, or have mockery rituals towards people, what would happen? That person says, okay, this society, this environment is not a good environment for me. And then people that did the mockery feel discarded. No, no, seriously, people expect to get paid rent when they do mockery rituals on their tenants and trying to traffic and put cameras in. The person will either lose their ability to work, lose their ability to make a living, or they're just gonna run the fuck away from human trafficking. And then several years later, it's like, oh, somebody did a mockery ritual in that apartment. I was like, yeah, I can see how that happened. They they're undermining themselves because they try to attack the light and to harvest the light and to take from the light. What they do is to scare the light away and make the light set fierce boundaries, and then they have to face their darkness, which is. And mostly these people were abused. These people